How about Amy Sage and Roger Miller? Come on up and join me here on each side. Let's welcome these folks to talk a bit about the grain situation. Amy Sage with the Andersons, just down the road, and Roger Miller here with Premier Cooperative. We appreciate the chat. We're going to go ladies first here. Lady first, how's that? You're close to home, Amy. You grew up in the Rantoul area, right?
I did, yes.
So you just didn't fly the coop. You didn't get away, huh?
Nope, I always heard there was a Champaign County magnet, and evidently I'm proof of that.
You know what? It is a wonderful place, and I'm saying that from having been a frequent visitor. It's just a great, great community around here for sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about how you folks have been preparing for the harvest season. What have you been doing, and what are you anticipating, especially with the crops as big as we are going to have? And yeah, I guess weather will be a little bit part of that, but we'll talk to Greg Solier about that momentarily. But what have you done thus far?
Sure. So I think most people are aware that we unfortunately had a bin collapse last January, Martin Luther King Day weekend. Fortunately, it was in the middle of the night, so nobody was around, so no injuries there. But in the meantime, now we've been working on getting that replaced, definitely in preparation, and that's very close to being done. So we replace the same 500,000 bushel tank in the same location, different type of bin, but that is close to completion. So we're very pleased with that. Also, just taking a little more action with train movement, making sure that we've got trains on the books to cover our needs in anticipation of a very good sized crop in our area. We've got our walls up to plan to put the same big pile out in the back and then also in the parking lot. So we are getting ready. We're anticipating again a 2014 close to size crop in our area. I know that's not going to be true of all areas, but we are looking at good yields in our immediate draw.
What are you hearing? You mentioned rail. What are you hearing from the railroads in terms of car availability and locomotive capability? They're geared up pretty well, too, to handle this, are they not?
Right now they are. Until we see a lot of corn come to the market, they're pretty readily available. That's usually how it works. You know, when you've got one ordered and nobody's in the field yet, then it shows up right away. And then when everybody gets there, they're a little bit slower as a general rule of thumb. So, but as far as that goes, we don't anticipate issues this year as far as placement. So especially, you know, taking the proper actions ahead of time. So I don't anticipate that being a problem today.
Your bin's empty over there now?
They are.
You're ready to go, huh?
We're trying to be, so I feel comfortable with that.
Roger, how are you folks doing in preparation for this big harvest?
We're doing great. Our bins are also fairly empty, probably as empty as we've been since 2014. So we've actually added 2.1 million bushels of storage this year, and we're ready for harvest to start. And we kind of kicked it off. Both the Andersons and us have a reduced drying program, so we're starting to get some new crop grain in now, and you know, ready to go, ready to get going.
We have heard some chatter, and I guess not so much in this area as I have in some other areas, southern Illinois, for example, about various disease concerns in the crop and degradation of the quality because of that. What are you hearing out there, Roger?
Well, in our area here, we've had a lot of fields are in that 2 to 5% damage. We've had one field that averaged 11% damage, diplodia and cob rot damage. I think we're hoping it's an early variety issue, it's an early harvest issue, but I'm not sure with that. A lot depends on what Greg's going to tell us on how wet it's going to be. I mean, every morning I go to work, there's dew out there, and that's not a good thing. We are lucky, though. I was in Western Illinois earlier this week, and talking to general managers of grain elevators out there, the highest damage count out of a field was 65% damage out of a field. And between the Illinois River and the Mississippi River, they have a lot in the 15 to 20% damage. And the one general manager told me that he thinks they're averaging over their whole intake so far around 8% damage. So it's much more prevalent. It's kind of in between the Illinois and Mississippi rivers in the west.
So that would be kind of in the Quincy and northeast of there, sort of in that locale?
Yeah, that's that general
Jacksonville?
area. Yes, Jacksonville to Quincy was the area that I was in. Yep.
Amy, what's your thinking over there at the Andersons down your way in regard to disease concerns and grain quality?
Seeing the same things as what Roger has, 2 to 5%. Haven't had a ton of new corn come in yet, so it's a little early for me to have a good feel for that. But Diplodocus and cob rot are the main issues that we've seen. Again, hoping it's an early hybrid issue, but again, not sure about how prevalent it's going to actually be, but we are seeing some in what we're dumping so far.
I guess there's only a certain extent to which you can blend problem grain and make it work for you guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that we take in, we also have to consider that we are going to be piling corn on that too. So there's an element that's going to come along with that as well. So managing that quality is going to be important. So hopefully, crossing our fingers for everybody that it's not a big issue going forward for the rest of harvest.
I guess weather is kind of a two-edged sword, is it not? You know, I was thinking about what you said earlier, Roger, about what the rain could do, and we'll talk with Greg a little bit about that. On one hand, it kind of helps you catch up sometimes, does it not? I mean, it might limit the long lines.
Yeah, it sure will. I mean, a perfect example of that was last year. We had 26 days in a row where we didn't have a rain. And I'll tell you what, that was a real.
You really got slammed, didn't you?
We got slammed hard, and it was. Looking at the forecast right now, that's probably not going to happen this year, pretty much guaranteed. But the downside is when I look out to October and see some potential moisture in October, that's typically when we are piling grain on the ground. And our goal is to get the grain out there, get it covered before it gets really wet, and may not be that window of opportunity this year.
Any thoughts on, I just ask you both, any thoughts on the basis and what we might be seeing during the harvest season? You know, just given what we know already about it, and of course, you know, Greg will maybe throw some additional input in here, but what are you expecting? Because the basis may be offering some opportunities in a market where there aren't too many opportunities, right?
And actually right now, the basis levels where we are right now is probably cheaper than I thought they would be. With the crop we got out there, I didn't think we'd see basis improvement early into harvest, but the key to the basis improvement now is the fact that we're not harvesting very much grain. So there's a short-term demand here for grain, but once we start kicking it in the field and you guys start shoving it down our throats, the basis, I think, is going to widen back out.
Amy, any thoughts in that regard?
Completely agree, especially with how rail values have been so far. You know, we've got carry-in coming into this year, so I completely agree. We're better than where I thought we would be September 15th, so might be something to be taking advantage of and definitely having those conversations around what's coming. Beans were a few weeks off yet, so we'll see what happens there. But as far as corn goes, with the potential that's out there, I think that we've got some pretty good values available considering the crop size that we think we're going to have.
I've been monopolizing this. I should offer the opportunity if anybody wants to ask a question. Any of you have a question you want to fire at these two panelists here? We saw the crop report the other day, of course, and they're still thinking big Illinois corn yield. They held that number, what, the average corn yield number for Illinois, I think at 200 bushels, unchanged from August, which I think had a few people scratching their heads. All the crop scouts that were out doing the recreational tours in August, I think, were thinking that we're really going to see some lower yield number there. That could come yet, though, couldn't it?
I think so. You know, in our crop tour, we came up with 224 per bushel average over our whole territory. In 2014, we were 221. Last year, we were 203. So in this general area, I think we're going to see 2014 maybe a little better. But I can tell you, I get emails from all over the United States on yield reports, and there's more people that are disappointed or saying that it's less than 2014 than there is saying that they're thrilled with the yields. So, you know, the USDA coming out with 175, I think the market, the Chicago Board of Trade, traded that about 1 day and then went back down. The USDA in the last 10 years has either lowered or raised their estimate by 1.9%. That's the most they've ever raised it. So if they would lower the projections by 1.9%, that would be down to a 171. And I think we're more in that 171 per bushel acre than where we are than the 175.
I've talked to some growers north of I-80 in recent days, and they say that they're going to be doing, some of them significantly better, they said, than 2014, that they're looking at real strong yields there. But as you say, we've got reports from other places. I heard some reports today that in Iowa, the bean yields are going to be way short of the mark. And I don't know if either one of you have heard anything in that regard, but they said some of the early combining that they think, and part of that they think may be related again to disease problems out there, just the way this crop is looking.
Yes, and truthfully, I really haven't heard any local bean yields yet.
I think there's been the widespread feeling that number was going to climb in the USDA reports.
Absolutely, and we did see that on Monday, which was expected, like you say. At this point, I guess to me, bean yields are kind of a shot in the dark. I guess they look really good. We had timely rains, so the potential, I believe, is there. It's like you say, what is disease going to show up, and how are these rains going to affect us into harvest? But at this point, it looks like the yield potential is there out there in this area.
How about a parting comment here, Amy? Anything you'd like to share with the group as we wrap up?
I'd like to echo Dan's comments about just having a safe harvest and being proactive with what you're going to do with the bushels that haven't been sold. I know I think that this is pretty common throughout the Corn Belt that there's less on the books going into this season than we typically see, and that's no surprise because there really hasn't been the opportunities out there to market like there have been in the past. So we really had a month-long window where there was attractive levels. And that was prior to pollination. It was prior to a June 30th report, so there was a lot of question marks out there at that time. So, what's done is done at this point, but having a plan of action, of how you're going to handle that and what the best strategy is, especially if we do get a reduction in the corn yield, which I think most people would say is a realistic thing, and how we're going to hold that grain going forward, what the best way to manage that is for a potential post-harvest rally.
We shouldn't forget what happened in June. I guess it's a reminder that there may not be a lot of home runs, but occasionally there can be a base hit that we can take advantage of. And I guess the producer needs to be nimble and ready to act, huh, Roger?
Yeah, that's correct. I don't see a lot of market appreciation this year. I mean, we're going to have some sort of a weather problem in South America or some political problem in South America for things to really take off. The one bright spot is on corn and wheat. The funds are really short already, so they've already got that short there. So that hopefully we're close to the bottom on corn. And I know at these levels you guys can't make any money at selling corn at these levels, so I don't. That's a problem. Soybeans, I think there is some potential for some more downward movement on beans. I'll tell you what, a farmer today brought in 2 bean plants, and he said, "What the hell are you going to do with all these beans we're going to harvest this year?" And I tell you what, the top third of those plants had more pods on them than the bottom 2/3, and I've never seen that before. And he's saying it's going to be the best bean yields he's ever had from what he's scouted in the last couple of weeks. So,
Roger, Amy, thank you both for sharing some thoughts with us. We sure appreciate your guidance, and you guys have a great harvest season at your facilities.